welcome to everybody. You are here with us in the Building Search AI webinar with our wonderful panelists from the Elastic engineering team. I hope everybody's doing well. While people are still joining, we're going to start with a quick introduction of like what we're going to talk about and maybe introduce a little bit about how what we're doing at the Elastic engineering team. So there's always big and exciting projects going on. So whether it's ESQL, the new piped query language, or the serverless platform, but the focus today will be on the exciting projects we have in AI and machine learning. And as I said, we have our wonderful guests, Josh, Greg, and Maya from the engineering team. They will talk to you about the nice projects and impacts they have been contributing to. And we will leave some time for questions towards the end of the session. So feel free to use the chat for questions. Some of them, we might get to them as we go, but we'll leave enough time, as I said. So Building Search AI is what this webinar will be about. And what we mean by Search AI at Elastic is the combination of the search, as in Elasticsearch, and intelligence of AI. So the way we're achieving that at Elastic is thanks to the Search AI platform, what we refer to it as Search AI platform. And there's a lot that goes into that, actually. And the heart of it is Elasticsearch. So it is Elastic's search engine, but there's also Kibana with all the UI elements that target our three main use cases: security, observability, and search. And there's also all of the elements that are data ingestion, data processing, the platform that backs all of this, the cloud or self-managed, how you visualize data. So there's a lot that goes into what we refer to as Search AI. So today with our panelists, we'll be diving into the innovative work that's happening at Elastic in the AI and ML space and what we're most excited about. So we're going to start, I think, with a couple of intros. So as for myself, I'm going to start with myself. Sorry. My name is Najwa. I'll be the host of this webinar. I am a product manager in the Elasticsearch team. I focus on things like cross-cluster search, cross-cluster replication. For those who are not familiar with those features, they are the features that allow you to search and replicate data across multiple Elastic clusters. I also work on the foundational elements of search, the search query language. And I'm based in France. I have, in my past life, experience in technical consulting and support, customer support, both for Elastic and other enterprise software. And yeah, I think we can kick this off with a round of introductions. Let's start with you, Josh.
So hi, everyone. My name is Josh Devens. I'm a tech lead and senior principal engineer in the search team. And like everyone else, I work on search and machine learning. I've been at Elastic for 5 years. And before that, I have kind of over 2 decades of general engineering, data science work. But most of my background is building data products and teams around building data products, data infrastructure at big companies like Nokia and small companies, startups like SoundCloud. I am a Canadian based in Berlin.
Thank you, Josh. Let's continue with you, Maya.
Hello, everyone. I'm Maya, and I am software engineer at the Elasticsearch team, working in sub-team called Search Relevance. So my team is working on all the search, like traditional search features, and also like vector search features. I've been at Elastic for more than 7 years, and I'm still very much like working here. Before Elastic, I also was working on information retrieval. I was working on the search features at IBM for CouchDB database.
Thank you, Maya. Moving on to you, Greg.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Grégoire Corbière. I'm a manager in software engineering at Elastic. More precisely, I'm the manager for the machine learning research and development team. I joined Elastic 3 years ago. I'm like a baby elastician among those panelists, but it's been good so far too. Before I was a manager, I was actually a machine learning engineer, and before I was at Elastic, I was also a machine learning engineer, and I worked on like applying machine learning techniques to various use cases, so ranging from cybersecurity to autonomous driving, and well, I ended up here, and yeah, pretty happy to be around.
I
Thank
just
you.
noticed we're a very Canadian European panel going on here. That's fun.
Right. And Greg and I come from south of France. Both of us come from Toulouse region. So we're representing many interesting regions, French speaking as well. All right, thank you all. I think it really makes this discussion really interesting that we come from different backgrounds and we also represent different teams here at Elastic. So talking about teams, what does your team do within Search AI and how do you think that evolved in the past year or so?
Okay, I can try and answer that first. So managing the machine learning research and development team includes, of course, training new models for search relevance, because at some point you want your user to be able to retrieve finer documents or your documents to rank better. So a lot of our team's activity consists in like keeping up to date with the literature, testing new techniques, and once we find a promising way forward, we'll just think about a way to build this model or ship this in the product somehow. A lot of this, comes down to benchmarking measurements. It's a really scientific process for a private company, I think, but it makes us like it allows us to maintain a certain technical excellence, which I think the team appreciate. Yeah, I guess that's it in a few words.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Moving on to you, Maya.
So our team works on building vector search functionality for our Elasticsearch database. And in the past year, we were really concentrating on making the usage of different vector search features much easier, and also hybrid search features. And also working on optimizing vector search to make it faster, use less memory footprint, etc.
Awesome. How about yourself, Josh?
So I work kind of across many teams in many areas, and one of the themes, of course, is trying to merge some of the traditional information retrieval approaches with more modern search technologies, and bringing in ML-based approaches, and basically like overall trying to bring some maturity to our approaches and technologies, bring things up to sort of the modern era, let's say. One of the teams that I do work with, we're currently building a global scale machine learning inference service, which is kind of a fundamental component for all of modern search and all of AI, basically. So that's what's coming up.
Amazing. Thanks all. So I think with the advent of AI and like all of the innovation that's happening around us as product managers, as engineering teams, we love that. We love innovation, but we also need to be pragmatic on like, how does it impact customers? How does it impact users? And I know the four of us come from different teams. And for myself, since I come from, like, I work in the platform team, and when we're building the platform, sometimes we make different kinds of impacts. Like sometimes it's direct customer impact, and sometimes it's more kind of through the solutions. When it's direct is like when we're working on improving features that are directly used by end customers like ESQL or cross-cluster search. But then we also make impacts by building the features that allow the solution teams like search, observability, and security to cater for their specific use cases. And things like AI assistant, or how we also manage the platform for our serverless offering, and things we make like auto scaling, auto sharding behind the scenes for our customers. So I was curious to know, like on your 3 different teams, what are the customer impacts that you made from your work over the past, say, year? And let's start with you, Maya.
Right, yeah, I already mentioned that we were concentrating on the ease of usage, so to make it very simple for our users to come and use our vector search features, or just the tradition, or combining it with hybrid search. So what we did in this domain, we introduced what is called semantic text search. So it's very easy API, it's just a couple of lines, and with it, the users can quickly start to use our vector search and hybrid search and just using the simple APIs. We also introduced what is called retrievers framework. So it's another way to combine your searches based on, for example, you can define different ways how you retrieve the data, and then how you want the results to be combined together. So this is a very powerful framework for someone who is looking for different ways to combine vector search and traditional search results. And we also were concentrating a lot on optimizations. So for example, we introduced a new formats for storing vector data to reduce memory footprint, such as scalar quantization, or the recent binary quantization that allows to reduce up to 32 times your memory usage, which means that you can use less powerful machines or store much more data. And we also were concentrating to make the searches faster, vector searches faster, and we had all the improvements there.
Thank you, Maya. And I think these are the typical examples of like how we can empower solution teams and solutions to build powerful solutions on top of this kind of platform. Let's move on to you, Greg.
Right, thanks. So I guess the impact of my team's work for the past, or my work, but indirectly as a manager, I kind of talk in the name of my team. I think it's been like twofold. So there has been some impact around how to like benchmarking some results, trying new techniques, and explaining to our user base or people curious about the technology, where does this fit in a modern technological stack to retrieve documents or to perform search like Elastic, obviously. So we've put out a few blog posts about, for example, if you have a RAG setup, how can you judge the quality of generation by using LLMS judges? How can you blend together some relevant score across different models? So maybe you use different, maybe you use different retrievers that give you different relevant score, and they don't have the same output space. So you want to blend them together and be able to compare them. So that's something we investigated on. It's like pure technical, scientifical content that we put out there. And then there's the more down-to-earth, usable deliverables we do have. So I think the most significant was probably ELSER, or maybe ELSER v2. ELSER is a home trained sparse neural model. So it's a model that doesn't rely simply on keyword to give you the right documents, but it will actually do semantic search across documents compared to your query. And I think it's been pretty successful. I think it's like on our hosted services, it must count hundreds of millions of calls. So yeah, that was quite a highlight for 2024 in our team.
That's awesome to hear. And to your first sentence, I think managers make a lot of impact in teams, and I work with managers very closely, and I can see how powerful like they make even like how we deal with any escalations, any just like delivering the awesome stuff that we're delivering as part of those great projects. So of course, kudos to the managers. Moving on, we know the AI space is evolving very rapidly. So we wanted to know and get your input, and maybe we can start with you, Josh, on what has been the biggest technical challenge that you've faced since you're working in the search AI space.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. So obviously there's like a really fast pace of innovation, especially right now. So I think keeping up with this, but not only keeping up with what's happening, but being able to identify like what are the emerging patterns that we see. So there's also a lot of noise that comes up. There's, if you read all the blog posts and all of the Twitter feeds, it's sometimes hard to pick out what are the patterns. So I think like the technical challenge is like we don't want to implement something too soon. For example, we need to kind of validate, is this like what of all these approaches that we see, what actually makes sense for our customers. So being able to react quickly really to what our customers need and picking out what are those patterns. So something as simple like something like hybrid search, where you're combining the results from a lexical search, so like traditional search, with semantic search. And we've seen, even over a couple of years, we've seen sort of various approaches come and go in and out of favor. And we've implemented some of them as we've seen these patterns emerge. But then you also sometimes see people go back to some of the older approaches and say like, oh, actually, this was a really good approach. So it's like trying to keep up with that and make sure that we're really meeting the needs of our customers, like as we're learning as an industry, because this isn't just us. This is kind of, yeah, the whole industry trying to learn things at the same time. So I don't know if that's maybe not a concrete technical challenge, but it's something that I think probably people working in the AI space will recognize, that it's a pretty big challenge just to figure out what are the right things to build of all of the interesting things out there.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. And how about you, Maya, from the Elasticsearch side of things? What were the biggest challenges that you've been facing recently?
I very much agree with the Josh. Yeah, very high pace of innovations in vector search and as well. For example, I can tell how we were approaching quantization of vectors. So we wanted to quantize vectors to reduce the memory footprint and make searches faster. So we tried with the approach that was several years old, it's widely used. It's called product quantization. And while we were implementing it, a new paper came. It was called RabbitQ, that did kind of similar binary quantization, but promised better results, and kind of also had. So we switched to that and then evaluated two of them. And then our in-house scientist proposed another kind of modification, similar approach to RabbitQ. So we then switched to that. So it's like it shows how fast how fast the field is developing, and we need to be up to date, read papers and try to implement them.
Before we go on, I just wanted to mention, I think one of the things that's interesting from a technical perspective is like understanding what are the foundational components. So like what are the foundational technologies that we need to implement in order to build on top of, and making those right kind of choices at the beginning, so that even as things change really quickly, we can still add and build on top of some of these like primitives, let's say. So Maya had mentioned in, I think, one of the last questions, that her team was working on, or had worked on, the retrievers framework. So I think this is a good example of a place where we wanted to lay a foundation for also incorporating emerging and upcoming technologies. So semantic re-ranking is a good example of that, where we introduced the retrievers framework, and then we naturally had a place to do semantic re-ranking. Then Gregoire's team actually recently released the Elastic Re-Ranker model, which again is like, okay, we have a natural home for this now, so we can put it in. So this I think is a really good example of like how to solve some of these technical challenges, as well as to make sure that people are thinking, that's how we think about it, is building these primitives that we can then build on top of, or these foundational components. So I think retrievers is a nice example of that. And actually all three of our teams have had work in that space. So that also shows how we work together as a team.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. So the next question is more about like how you work as at Elastic and how you maybe collaborate also within teams. The question is about really what is the most exciting thing for you so far about working at Elastic, whether it's culture elements or projects in particular. And we'll start with you, Greg.
Oh, sorry, missed the mute button. Okay, so I think one of the most exciting thing for me probably has been about the colleague and the whole situation around elasticians, around myself. So there's this whole speech that you read sometimes about company, and in the case of Elastic, it's all about embracing difference of culture, diversity, and so on. But Elastic was built like as, I think it came from an open source project. So from T0, from the initial moment, it was a distributed effort. And you can feel this like deep in the DNA of the company. And when you hop on with your accent or I don't know your English, your approximate English, people kind of embrace this. And so you get to meet people with different background, different culture, different, this extra thing. And there are no barriers for keeping yourself from hiring brilliant people. So you meet brilliant people and they add this kind of cultural richness to it. I think this is a big highlight for me. Of course, this works if you manage to retain this person. And Elastic has been a bit, I think at Elastic we are cautious about the personal and professional balance. So yeah, this is nice. So you can really feel at home when you arrive here. Wherever you live, you still feel at home. I think that's a big plus. And then there's what's inherent to working in machine learning these days with people who happen to be smart. It's that you always discover new techniques. You always challenge your brain in embracing new ideas and new concepts. Sometimes I take 1 week to digest a discussion I'll have online with some of my reports, so people on my team. And when you click, when you understand that you didn't understand, and it actually makes sense, this is a nice feeling. I think this is a feeling if you don't have for long in a company. Well, you should question where you are in this company, I guess. And I think one thing that illustrates pretty well this stuff at Elastic is the on weeks we have. So every 8 months, the frequency is not that fixed. Every 8 months, we will book one week, so 5 days of free time, no meeting time, just to work on something you think is exciting. It doesn't have to be something on the roadmap. It doesn't have to be an open PR on your GitHub or on your team's project. It's really something technical that's loosely related to your work and that you feel like hopping on at the moment. So we've actually had very successful projects that were forked from the Zone Weeks initiative. But I think this illustrates also the headspace that Elastic leaves for people to just explore things and make sure that they keep finding, they keep nourishing their brains, so to speak. So I think those are the main highlights for me.
Great points. How about yourself, Josh?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm like just kind of nodding my head to what Grant was saying. Like I feel pretty similarly. Like just the fast pace of innovation, like it's definitely there, and it's like I wish I could replicate myself so that I could work on all of these things that are out there and that are interesting. So on weeks are great. Great to have that space and time to work on things that you find interesting. I think it's great as well that AI is in particular is kind of like a thread that's weaving throughout the entire company. So it's not just in one part of the company where AI is appearing. It's kind of coming out everywhere. So there is innovation kind of happening everywhere, and it's not just AI. There's lots of innovation other places as well. Great colleagues, I can only agree with. I think for me, it's as well. There's something about just the environment in which we work. Like it feels very supportive. Like it's very easy to like, I'm sorry I'm late because my kid is sick or something like that. So it feels like there's a lot of support here, and that support gives you room to do your best work. So, you know, as an example for me, like I'm an introvert. I don't love being on big meetings. This is fine, but you know, I like to turn off Zoom. I like to turn off Slack and give myself that space to do the kind of work that I need to do. And working remote is part of that kind of trade-off, is that you can give yourself that space. But the company is very supportive of this. Like if you don't answer Slack in 5 minutes, that's totally fine. So I think this is kind of a dual thing with the culture as well as the nature of remote work. But with remote work, of course, you're not seeing people. So it is nice that also we balance the remote work with in-person events. So we have an engineering all hands that we do once per year, where like it's all the engineers, it's product people, it's people from our field teams that are working directly with customers, and we all get together. I don't know how many people were at the last one we had in Prague. So we all get together in person as well, which is kind of a nice balance to the remote work, and that helps. You know, this is all like a virtuous cycle. It helps you feel like your colleagues are also your friends and people that you can chat with. It lets you actually, you know, get down to like really hammer out some work details in a face-to-face environment. So I think I put all of this under like supportive environment, like to do good work. So I would add that, but I agree with everything that Greg said as well.
And I agree with everything you both said. How about you, Maya?
Yeah, I was also very much want to echo what Gregoire and Josh said. Yeah, that about great colleagues and great culture. And also one thing to add, that I really feel that all the innovations, many innovations are driven by the engineers. So it's not like the management tells us what to implement. So we suggest a lot of ideas, and we always feel this kind of trust and also feel independence to work on the projects. And another thing is that what I personally very much excited is working on the cutting edge technology. Something every day you come and something very much interesting to work on.
Thank you, Maya. I think I can double down on like the great colleagues and talented engineers. Like there's also a lot of opportunity to be to gain also visibility, I think, through your work as an engineer, through blogs, writing, and contribution to open source projects like Elasticsearch itself, but also like other open source projects like Hotel or OpenTelemetry and Lucene. And the last thing I wanted to bring up on my own personal experience was the mobility program. And mobility is very much encouraged at Elastic, whether it is through like engineering teams, like you're interested in a certain field, you want to switch teams, or also even like I did myself, as I started as a customer support engineer and then transitioned to engineering through this product management role at Elasticsearch. So a lot of opportunity and also talented folks to work with. So next question, and I see we started to have some questions in the Q&A. So I see Greg has put some inputs in there. We can still go back to those at the end of the session, but let's move on to the next question. Can you share something that is exciting for you about future projects that you will work on? And we'll start with Maya.
For me, the whole area of the search AI is very exciting. I have been involved in the search and information retrieval for a very long time. And I'm very excited that with the LLM and RAGs, I see that the search gets new kind of excitement and rebirth, and there are a lot of to work on. And a particular kind of project that excites me is how we can do this retrieve results, very relevant results, and do it very efficiently.
Sorry, lost the unmute button. Thank you, Maya. Well, I think it's up to you, Josh.
So what's coming up? So I mentioned one of the things we're working on is a large scale inference service. And I think this is sort of fits in the category of increasing scale and bringing kind of our products and technology to more people and more use cases. I think some of the other folks mentioned as well. I think it was Maya was talking about ease of use. That was one of the things that her team is working on through things like semantic text, the Retrievers API. So I think like a lot of this has to do with how do we make it easier for people to build modern search experiences with AI? How do we make the API simpler? How do we make the experience even simply of like getting started, like download Elasticsearch and get started right away? How do we make things faster and cheaper for people? Because some of the stuff, obviously these models cost money to use. So, bringing scale, but also make sure that there's ease of use is kind of a constant throughout all of our products. So that's like also an interesting like design challenge, let's say. So I think that's one thing. And then just the increasing sophistication, like working on much more complex problems that require really bringing together all sorts of different approaches and techniques and technologies. Maya mentioned LLMs. This is going to be a big part of our future as well, but also all like the emerging approaches around taking LLMs and distilling them and having sort of like small language models that are task specific. Distillation is a big topic for us as well to bring costs down, efficiency, compute efficiency up. Like there's a whole bunch of topics around here just in the Gen AI space in general. Like how do you do like text generation, like generative tasks? How do you do that at scale with decent cost? Is a big theme. We see lots of models coming out that have been trained really cheaply, but we also have to do inference with those models. So there's a lot. There's so much to talk about of like what's coming up. But I think it's a lot about scale, ease of use, and maturity. Like I'm hoping that a lot of this stuff starts to mature as well as a technology. And again, like I mentioned earlier, like starting to see patterns emerge. It's slowly happening, but it's moving really quickly. Even things like agentic search, agentic workflows are something that we're interested as well in seeing how all of this evolves. What role does Elasticsearch play in that ecosystem as well is pretty interesting for us. I could talk about this for hours, but I'll let Greg answer as well.
We have time. Go ahead. I'm just kidding. Awesome. Well, I love that you also mentioned like the customer impact and like the footprint of like running expensive models or such. And this is very important, I think, especially that like it's good to have those innovations, but what do they mean for enterprise customers who also have to take into account cost and whatnot? So awesome. Let's move on to you, Greg. What's exciting?
What's exciting? Well, I can't wait to put my hands on Josh's new infrastructure to run some huge, huge inference. No, I mean, so Elastic is like positioning itself as the search AI solution, and there is all those use cases for RAG, right? If you do retrieval good, hopefully you do RAG good. But in RAG, I think there is still a very open question around how to evaluate the generation. So it's not because you have a very good retrieving pipeline and you think you're okay, like you can build a good prompt out of it, that you necessarily have a good generation. And we are investigating how to measure like at every key step in the RAG pipeline, the quality of those steps to potentially maximize or optimize as much as we can the RAG output. This is, to my understanding, still very open problem, because like how do you measure that a generation of full text is good? Like you can plug an LLM and ask it to be judged, but then at some point, don't you need to judge the judge? Well, you can pile it up infinitely if you. So yeah, there are many edge techniques, like new techniques around this with panel of frontier LLM and things like this. And I think it's extremely exciting to foster this, like to investigate, measure things, and finally be able someday perhaps to have one magic button that tells you, okay, this is how much better we can make your RAG pipeline. So this whole evaluation and tuning of RAG is pretty exciting, and it's also a big chunk of work in the team. As Josh mentioned, how do you make one model more efficient? This is very important because, well, sometimes you just plug a third-party LLM, you think the output is good, but actually it costs you too much, and it's not, it's not practical. You can't really put this into production. And the efficiency is also important to many extent, customers, but also other factors. So can we compress things? Can we make things run faster with a smaller footprint? I think this is very important. And then, yeah, all right, we have this GenAI lock that kind of got blasted by, well, I mean, we have all these technical locks that got blasted away by LLM. Can we not apply those to something else than natural text, natural language? So Elastic is also, an observability or security solution. So what if we use LLM to help observability engineer SREs make a better use of their time? How much time efficiency, how much insight can we gain, or can we automatically derive using LLM on logs, metrics, and traces and things like this? This is also something that we are working on. I find extremely exciting because when you're a human spending hours looking at logs, so you're a human examining machine-generated language, you might get tired after some time. So it's only fair if you kind of relegate this back to the machine at some point. So yeah, I think those are very interesting projects we have on at the moment.
That reminds me of some memories looking for hours at logs and trying to find something that helps. So definitely some LLM help would have been welcomed back then. Cool. All right. So in this audience today, we have, I think, a mix of engineers, people of different technical backgrounds that might be interested in similar roles. So for those people, what are the skills that you recommend they focus on? And do you have any resources that you can share? And we'll start with you, Greg.
Okay, yeah, this is a very good question. I think Elastic being a remote first company, autonomy is quite important for my team. So I will expect newcomers to have this ability to navigate the literature, understand new concepts, and digest them so that they can fit somewhere in the product, or just discard them if they don't, more or less autonomously. That will be a function of their seniority. This is very important because that's what I expect. It's more like an applied scientist type of position. Then also, once you have found maybe a good idea from a paper, or a good idea in 1,000 papers, because that's the kind of pace the field is at the moment, can you design an experiment that will allow you to discard 90% of them, or to keep the one that makes sense and that would fit in a more product, or in the Elasticsearch product, or platform, sorry. This is also very important. Of course, it's function of seniority. I don't expect anyone to have this vision at once, but this is a key ingredient in the recipe for success in my team. And then you so you navigated the literature. You designed an experiment that proves that this is the way forward. Can you communicate this to me and to the rest of the more people who don't have time to dig that deep in detail? And can you do this remotely, knowing that maybe they don't have your background, maybe they didn't spend 1%, 100th of the time you spent on this? And yeah, so communication, soft skills, that's also very important to me. Voilà.
Yeah, I love this. I think it's very motivating, like for somebody who's interested in the AI realm and curious about it and proactive and wants to like make it real, make it happen. And I think we have the culture that enables that, which is really, really amazing. How about yourself, Maya?
Right. In my team, so if I look at the people whom we hired recently, either people were strong engineers, like especially Java engineers, or people who had some vector search experience before, who knew about main methods to index vectors data, how indexes, or even like a search domain, how the indexes are organized in search engines and how the data is searched. But besides, if you want to kind of thrive in a remote company, something like at Elastic, I would echo what Gregor said. You need to be relatively independent, like to take the project and work on it. But at the same time, also know when to look for help, not to be stuck continuously. If you and look for help and reach to other people, ask their opinion, to be proactive, and that will help you to thrive.
Awesome. How about you, Josh?
So I will maybe dovetail off of what Gregor was saying earlier around like being able to experiment and discard ideas as well is really important. And maybe I would generalize that a little bit. And like it's important to be principled about your approaches and know how to do evaluation and know how to do principled approaches, but to be pragmatic at the same time. That it doesn't mean that we always have to use the most cutting edge technology. Sometimes, one or two steps backwards or earlier is also viable as a first option, moving towards more cutting edge approaches. So I think there's like a balance to find that takes practice, but being very conscious and cognizant of that, I think is important as a skill in general. I think understanding how to make trade-offs is a really important skill, not only as an engineer, but as a data scientist as well. And working in this space, like similar to what I just mentioned, it's, you can't always have all of what you want. People have, compute and cost budgets, for example. So, but that can also bring a lot of, like these constraints can also make you try to be more innovative, and it can actually help with like inspiring innovation because you have constraints. So I'll add that, like working with constraints, I think is an important skill. I think someone mentioned communication. That's always like pretty high on my list, like especially in a remote environment. Being able to communicate is very extremely important. I know it's like a soft skill. I think on the technical side and like how to keep up to date and resources, I would always shout out Elasticsearch Labs as a good place to follow. I think we've posted some links in there. That's where we post all of our ideas, innovations, releases, deep dives into technology. So if you really want to see what we're working on, Elasticsearch Labs is definitely the best place to go. I've always been a big fan of things like Coursera and these kinds of resources. LinkedIn Learning is good as well. These kinds of resources to learn like fundamentals at your own pace. I think that tends to be a good approach. I don't know what else do people focus on. I think it's always nice when people show that they can execute on things. So if you have a GitHub repo of like a project that you've worked on, or you could show us something that you've worked on in the past, I think it's always really good. Something good to show is how you can execute.
That's great. Thank you all for the insights. So we can move on to questions from the audience, and I think many of them were already answered in the chat, but it could probably make sense, like if we want to talk to some of them.
I can mention in tech stack as well. I mean, all of us can probably talk about our like the tech stack in our different areas. Like this is a common question we always get, like every interview I go into, it's always asked. So Gregoire mentioned like for ML R&D, it's what was mentioned there. We work, Maya's answering live as we're talking. We also work like deploying infrastructure. We work a lot with Kubernetes environments, tools like Argo CD for CI/CD. We use like I don't know, generally DevOps types of practices. We use Helm charts, for example, when trying to deploy things into Kubernetes. There's a whole mixed bag of like AWS, GCP, Azure services because we operate pretty broadly on all of these platforms. Those are the things that come to mind. We also like for services, we use Go as a language. There's a lot of Python everywhere. There's a lot of Java, especially in the data science space. Like Python is pretty ubiquitous. Was PyTorch mentioned? So PyTorch is used quite a lot. Yeah, along with like Hugging Face, transformers libraries, sentence transformers, that kind of thing. I don't know if people have more specific questions. I think we're happy to answer them. I think that hopefully gives a good broad view.
Yeah, I can compliment on what you said. I indeed forgot PyTorch. Thank you for saving the day, Josh. But yeah, it's a comfortable team, the ML R&D, because we investigate, so we don't constrain ourselves to many tools. So I have people joining who were at ease with one tool, and so we discussed about adopting it or not. But it's never a problem to try something.
Cool. I think there was also a question in the chat about what examples can we provide from like interesting projects that span thanks to Spacetime Week. I know, Greg, you put a couple of links there, but if you want to talk about one of them, or maybe you, Maya, if there was you want to give examples, or I think Spacetime Week is very exciting from a product management perspective, because it's really like giving time to engineers to really do something that is not really dictated by anything or by anyone. So, and as Greg said in the past, it really led to interesting findings and projects that really start off discussions. So it's I think an interesting topic. So if any of you three want to talk about one of the projects, then it would be great.
Yeah, I dropped a few elements of answer. Of course, one is more a private joke, but I think Spacetime, what's interesting is it's more the way than the destination. I know it's very cliche to say this, but like you design that stuff to automatically suggest the right wine depending on your recipe. True story. And maybe you'll find something about optimizing your prompt engineering and or versioning it because you've tested so many prompts and one was killer, but that was yesterday and you don't remember. And actually you regret this. So now, from now on, you advocate for this and you improve your team's best practice and stuff like that. So it's not, yeah, most of the time it's about, yeah, what you learn this week and all the derivative from it. But I think some stuff were like forks of spacetime. So the file uploader is one of them. When you want to ingest data in Elastic, the experience can vary. And so the file uploader I think it's a killer feature because you can just drag and drop a file and there is an automatic parser that detects them, that does all the mapping configuration for you. The only downside is that it's limited to 500 megabytes, but that's, yeah, you can split your files, I guess.
Awesome. I see some new questions popped up in here. All right, so let me start with this one. How do you help clients/users to understand the value of hybrid search and evaluate what their best option is among the various retrievers and configurations? For example, some clients may find more use from semantic search, but others may only need lexical search. I don't know, Josh, if you want to answer to this, or Maya, maybe?
I mean, like my standard answer for all of this is always evaluation. Like build evaluation tooling, pick the metrics that matter for your business, for your use case, and do it always, again, this principled approach, like always do it from a principled evaluation perspective, like always. And I think like Gregoire's team does a ton of work around benchmarking and evaluation, and we have published a few articles on Elasticsearch Labs as well. So that's like the general answer. Yeah, among all the various retrievers and configurations, yeah, you really can't do it without principled evaluation. Um, and like, there's no reason why you have to use semantic search. If lexical search works for you with all of the tools that we've offered for the last decade in Elasticsearch, then use that. I think one of the interesting things that we're seeing is like how there's different ways to combine lexical and semantic search. So you don't also have to do hybrid. You can do lexical search and stack on a re-ranker on top of that. And that brings the advantage of not like no one has to reindex everything, right? You can just turn it on and you can play with it. You can run your evaluations. You can try different ranking depths. Oh, there's a great article that Gregoire's team did on, we should post it, on re-ranker depth analysis. So understanding how many documents to re-rank. So this is like another way to kind of do hybrid without having to use RRF and use embeddings. So I think there are some new like emerging approaches for how to do like hybrid like search. It doesn't always have to be like a dense vector retrieval or ELSA retrieval and then RRF combined with lexical. So yeah, again, I could talk about this for hours. I hope that that answers that question.
Thank you, Josh. I see another question that Maya answered, but maybe we can also discuss it here for the people who are watching the recording. Someone asked, is dot product the best similarity approach to use in a KNN query after quantization of vectors?
Right, it really depends on the model. Some models dictate that you use Euclidean distance because that's how they were trained. Yeah, and some models you need to use cosine similarity, so it's really model dependent. But dot product is the fastest because inside Elasticsearch, because it involves much less calculations.
Awesome, thank you, Maya. All right, I'm trying to see if which ones I've missed.
I think someone is asking about the keeping up to date with the latest innovations in search AI and ML.
Right.
But I mean, this is a I rely on Josh. No, partly I do. So there is this thing about networking with people with the same interest. But yeah, the external sources, I don't know, it ranges from Reddit, machine learning to Arxiv, and probably Josh, you have better tips than me on this.
I don't know if I do. People always ask this, and I'm like, I don't even know where I
Uh,
find papers from and whatever. One thing that I did find actually pretty useful was on Google Scholar, you can subscribe to individual authors. So if you know specific authors are producing work either themselves or in collaboration with others, you can follow a specific author. So I quite enjoy following Jimmy Lin, who's a professor at the University of Waterloo, whose group produces a ton of excellent work. So go subscribe to Jimmy Lin's publications on Google Scholar. I did that for quite a while. I go through these phases of trying to find, yeah, good like condensed ways to keep up to date, and it just kind of rotates. I'm trying to think. Let me think offline and see. But yeah, Google Scholar subscriptions is one good way to.
Oh, Twitter, following some people. I'm following some people in information retrieval domain who are quite vocal here.
I would
On
follow
Twitter.
Philip Kren. I don't remember his Twitter handle. Xera, XERAA, I think. Oh, we should probably look this up. So he's on the Elasticsearch team. He's part of our team, and he's kind of, I don't know, he's got his fingers in a lot of pies in the community, and he'll often repost interesting conversations, interesting Twitter threads, this kind of thing. So go follow him. We should, yeah, there, that's the link. Go follow him.
Oh yeah, thanks. All right. Is there still an open one? No. So I'm just gonna cherry pick from the answered questions. Yeah, one that came maybe a bit earlier and you answered, Josh. What is the best strategy to paginate when using a text similarity re-ranker?
Yeah, I mean, this is a common question as well, and it's not just with a text similarity re-ranker, like a cross-encoder re-ranker. It's with a lot of different kinds of re-ranking that you might want to do. We don't support pagination directly, the general approach is like if you have a page size of 10, so like you show 10 links, for example, you ought to then have a big top K re-rank. So let's say 50 documents or 100 even. And your pagination is basically your process of taking those re-rank documents and then for each page, you're basically doing a slice through that. It's not the most efficient way to do it, but it's kind of the only way you can do it really, because this re-ranker stage is always last. So you can't really ask it to re-rank a part of it. Like you have to re-rank a certain set of documents and then paginate afterwards. So there's some technical reasons as well why we don't support pagination that way. But that's generally the way to do it. So like, I don't know what it's called, like overfetching, let's say, and re-rank a bigger top K. That's the general guidance.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you all for the insights. I think we're good to wrap this up. One last thing, and which was also one of the questions asked, was I'm interested in applying to join a team at Elastic. How do I do that? And Maya already answered, but just to double down on that, there is a careers page on the elastic.co website. So feel free to visit that. We're hiring. And also a good tip that Maya posted, which is to follow our GitHub, basically, to know what projects are the teams working, and maybe even start working and helping on the open source repositories that we have. It's always great to see contributions from community and candidates. So I think we're good to wrap this up. Thank you so much for the insights, and thank you all for attending. We'll share the recording to your registered email for those who could not attend. I think if there are any other questions that we did not come to, then feel free to also reach out to us on LinkedIn. Thank you all for jumping in with us, and take care, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you.